Hey guys, what is up? So today what I have is 5 forehands to analyze. Now I want to kick it off by saying thanks for everybody that sent me your forehands. I did watch every single video that was sent to me and I made notes on all of them. However, I can only pick 5 for the sake of this video. So I'm sorry if I didn't get to your forehand in this video, but I highly recommend that everybody watches because there's not a single person that sent me a forehand where a lot of the advice that I'm going to give in this video where the advice doesn't apply to the forehand. So I'm not only going to critique, I'm also going to say what the people in the video did well as too, so the pros and cons of what they were doing. And one more thing, I should have really been much more clear about what kind of videos I wanted. I wanted videos of forehands only, where like every point had forehands in them, so I didn't have to scrub around looking for forehands, because doing this video analysis is going to be very hard because I'm going to be playing the video on the screen behind me and I'm going to be talking, and of course I want you guys to be able to see them hitting their forehands as I explain it. So this is going to be a little bit scattered, even though I do have notes on everyone's forehand already, but I'm sorry if my thoughts don't always connect, because I'm going to be looking at the screen and trying to sync what I'm saying with what's on the screen as well. I actually agonized for hours and hours on how I was going to do this, and already recorded for hours, and there was so much recording that I did that was like I just found myself rambling on and trying to sync what was going on in the screen with what I was talking about. I decided on a format where I'm talking about the most important things of every video that I picked, and like I try to keep it as concise as possible so everyone can still learn from it, but I'm not just rambling on, because I could ramble on about just one forehand for hours and hours, and it just wouldn't work for YouTube. But anyway, let's try to get started. I tried to pick 5 where there was like a broader variety of forehands, so I didn't say the same thing too many times, but most people have very similar issues, like me included. My forehand's not perfect either. So yeah, let's keep going. So this is Philly, and I want to say that Philly, you've got a very nice you have a good shoulder turn. Your hands and your racket, they go together when you turn and when you see the ball right here, and actually your racket gets into the set position very early with your left hand in a good place. Now the thing I want you to pay attention to more is that your hips don't necessarily turn, especially when the ball comes to you statically. See, when you have to move, your hips actually turn more, just like in that shot. And let's go a couple more. This next shot, this is the best shot you hit in the entire video. So look at your hips, they're naturally turned because you're running. Because you're moving to the side, you're already facing that way, so your toes are pointed to the right and your hips naturally turn. So here you're a lot more lined up on your forehand, and because you have this extra power and turn from your hips going into the shot, even though you're backing up because you had to run back, your racket ends up in such a good place on the follow through, and this shot is really explosive. Now I noticed that you have, I think this is slightly more western side, like semi-western but a little more western, and you actually hit more flat in most of these shots, but that last shot, it was heavy. It was heavier than the other shots you hit because you were on the run and you had your hips going into it. So I think that is the main thing that you should focus on for balls that are static, that where you don't have to move that much. Okay, that's not a good example, but Yeah, so for balls where you don't have to move that much, you don't really get this turned as much. So you're actually losing quite a bit of power on your shots, and you time your shot pretty well already. So you can actually get even more if you just get used to engaging your lower body right away. So thank you for this video, and thank you for making a video with all forehands. Alright, so next up is Mark. And let's check out his forehand first. Okay, so Mark kind of has the same thing as Philly, where he turns well and his arms, his racket is in a good place. See right here, he gets his right hand because he's lefty. He gets his offhand there, and his racket is in a pretty good place. This one, he had his toes pointed in a good direction, but his hips could turn more. You see, the back is I can kind of tell that your entire core is not really engaged as much, and you're kind of swinging your arm around. But what I want you guys to pay attention to here is his offhand when he hits. His offhand leaves early on most of the shots before the acceleration of the racket. Now this is going to throw your body in a direction where you're not getting everything into the ball, and it's really useful for balance. So mark your offhand is actually in the correct place in the beginning. Just try not to move it as fast. You don't want to leave it all the way until you hit the ball, but you also don't want to just have it carry your shoulder into a different direction. Okay, like see here, the offhand leaving actually makes it so you can't transfer your weight. There you end up just using your arm. So the consistency of having your hands synced and everything together, no matter where the ball is going, is very important. That's just going to improve your consistency and shot quality overall. Because if your offhand is solid, then you will find your spacing is also better because it's there keeping the ball away from being too close to you. So yes, that's the main thing that I think you should focus on, besides the hips as well. Otherwise, your backswing looks pretty good, and your racket path looks simple, so you have that consistency going for you. Okay, so right now we have Andrew. So Andrew has probably the most lag out of all the forehands that I reviewed, so I think this is a really good learning point. So for Andrew, I don't know if you guys saw from the last couple forehands, but let's see. I would advise that Andrew, when you have your racket this much this way, try to have a smoother continuous motion down to the bottom so you don't stop right here too long. Okay, especially on a high ball. And the other thing is, when you're hitting, you don't want your upper body to go back. So you do want to pretend you're sitting a little bit, and when you hit though, you want to try to move through, even though you're even if you're trying to hit topspin. But especially for a ball that's short like that, your hand and your racket can go through a lot more, so where you're not going like this with your chest facing up and then just wiping. I think you could get a lot more power if you can figure that out. See how this kind of comes up and is here. So with different grips, the contact point is going to be slightly different in terms of how forward and how back they are, and I think your grip is a little bit more Can't tell if it's more Western or not. It's just really hard to tell from the videos. But you have a lot of whip. Yeah, I can't tell. It's just too blurry. And you see how you kind of finish a lot with your forearm sometimes? Some forehands I saw you hit in this video that were better were the ones where you get your hand all the way through and your racket actually travels a lot further, and you'll always have the spin because of how you hit, but you're also going to get like the heaviness and the penetration that you want if you let your racket go a little bit more. Not to mention, so the main points are that try not to let your racket stop at the bottom too long. As long as you get there early enough to get under the ball, it's good. You don't want to stop, so you have to restart your stroke, and a lot of that has to have to do with like when you shift your weight after you set up for your forehand. So sometimes when the ball is slower, you can hold longer so you don't get down there too early. And if the ball is fast, you shouldn't stop, because then you're not gonna have time to stop anyway. So those are the 2 points for you: is try not to let your racket stop at the bottom for too long, and to let your hand go a little bit more and not lean back when you're hitting balls, especially balls that don't have pace on them. Alright, coming up is Bootleg Bue. That was your name on Instagram, and that's also your name on YouTube. So I'm gonna assume that you are a Rublev fan, and there's nothing wrong with that. Awesome name. Okay, so I've looked at your stroke, and there are 2 big components to the forehand that I think would help you a lot. Okay, so when you hit your forehands, the tilt in your shoulder, and it's not just this short forehand, a lot of forehands that you hit, your racket is like more vertical than I would like it. If you can get your, so here you have to sit down more, and your rotation has to be more horizontal, more parallel to the ground as you rotate through the ball. Your racket can drop and go up, but you want the line of your hips to be closer to where your contact is going to be in terms of height. So by doing this, you actually get the ball really close, and there's this really like your entire body becomes like this. Now sometimes it can't be helped if you don't get to the ball in time, but I think this is your contact point of choice right now, because most shots that you hit, except that one because you had to go out wide, but even like for that one, you were quite close on it. So you're actually leaving yourself like very little room to do what you want with the ball. If you get your spacing, first of all, a little bit more forward and a little bit more to the right, that's gonna help a lot. So pay attention to where your left hand is, and make sure the ball doesn't get into the space, it doesn't get past the wall that your left hand creates. And when you hit, some of the forehands that you hit, just like a lot of other people that I saw, when you finish too fast with your forearm like this, and your body has to like scrunch up or go another way, instead of having your hand go all the way through and get past your shoulder on the follow through, like when you do the abbreviated finish and a lot of reverse forehands with your weight not going as forward as much as you could, it doesn't produce as good of a ball. And now there were a couple of shots in this video where you hit through the ball and your racket ended up all the way through, and you still got the spin and the safety you wanted, but it was just a better, higher quality ball. Other most important point that I think you should pay attention to is that I've noticed that your backswing size is somewhat inconsistent, where you can have a bigger backswing for slower balls, but sometimes your racket gets all the way to your left side, like way behind your body before you hit. So I think that makes it harder for you to make contact. And because your racket gets so far back, that's probably part of the reason why when you rotate, you're hitting every ball close, because when you're turned that much, it would be weird to really reach out in front. So I think this will help your timing a lot, and it'll just make your stroke more consistent. So pay attention to how far back your hand is going. Sometimes you hit a couple where you abbreviated it a little bit, but I would recommend you videotape yourself from the back again, and from like the back side view as well, so you can see exactly where your racket is going and find the backswing. That'll help you a lot. Okay, last but not least, we have Eugene. So the take back is pretty simple, and that's good. I just want to watch a couple more. I already know what I'm going to say here. So for this part, you see where your hand finishes? So you get here and then you go into a windshield wiper, but then your hand just ends up finishing like in front of your body, and you have this part. I think you actually hit a fairly consistent forehand, and most of them go in because I don't think you're going for that much. But in terms of improvement and increasing the ball quality, I want you to try to, you might hit the ball out doing this, but it's going to increase your ball quality in shots. So I want you to try to finish and have your thumb all the way on your shoulder every time, and I want your racket tip to face the back fence when you follow through. And I think that'll actually just help you get through the ball a little bit more, because you do wipe and your racket face I see changes a lot this way. Now I like your backswing. One thing about your backswing though is try not to stay in this position too long with your hands like this. Now a lot of people do this, especially in the 3-0 and the 3-5 and 4-0 level, where the ball is maybe not as fast yet on a regular basis, so you have time to leave your hands out here for a long time and then swing, but your hands should only be together for a moment, and you have to get into your set position right away. And I have a video on the set position, so shameless plug, you guys should go watch that. Yeah, so if the ball comes faster and heavier, you're not going to be able to hold it that long and then go like this. So it should just be right away. That should be the timing. So I think those two things will help you. In this match, I couldn't really tell that your opponent, because your opponent didn't hit hard enough to expose that. So it seemed like your timing was pretty much spot on most of the time with your forehand. But I think, well, I don't think, I know from just experience that when the ball starts to get harder, because the tips I gave you earlier is going to help you get more shape and more power in your ball. But when the ball comes back that fast, you can't have your racket here until the ball bounces, because you have to be ready to hit when the ball bounces. So that's going to be the main point for you, the follow through and not holding your hands here too long. And I think the holding your hands here too long is one of the biggest things I see across like so many players, including my students, and including my students that play tournaments. For some reason, it's comfortable to hold it here really, really long. But I don't know how far I'm looking ahead when I'm saying this, because like I don't know how high a level you're going to end up competing, or anyone's going to end up competing. But once the ball gets heavy and fast, you're just not going to have the luxury of holding your hands there that long. But anyway, yes, I believe that is all 5 people. This is my page. Don't forget to like and subscribe maybe. I don't know, if you want to learn more, and if you want another chance to send me a video, who knows, I might do another analysis video in the future, and I might actually be a little bit more clear about the type of videos I want. But anyway, if you sent me a match video, which mostly everyone did except for one person, that was my fault, not your fault, for not being clear about the type of videos that I wanted. But anyway, I'm still very grateful that people would send me their videos. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm sorry if it was a little bit scattered. I was trying to get my points across without talking too much, which is very, very difficult for me. And also while scrambling to like sync up the whatever's going on the screen with what I'm saying. But yeah, this was kind of an experiment, and I kind of wanted to interact with the community a bit. So hopefully it was a success. And as always, peace out. Have a good one.